Right now, in the room you're sitting in, something is looking at you. You won't notice it until I point at it, and then you won't be able to stop noticing it.
It might be the outlet in the wall, the front of a car parked outside your window, a knot in a wooden door, the foam on top of your coffee.
You know none of those things are faces. You know they're plastic and metal and wood. You know they have no eyes and no opinion about you. And none of that helps. You still see it.
You can't decide to stop because by the time you understood what you were looking at, the decision had already been made without you. It takes about 1/6 of a second.
That's not a figure of speech. It's a measurement. And behind that measurement is a deal your brain made a very long time ago. One it made before you were born. One nobody asked you about.
And it gets stranger, because your brain doesn't just flag face, it fills in a person. In 2022, Wardle's team published something in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that sounds like a joke until you see the numbers. They showed people photographs of ordinary objects that happened to look like faces: a bag, a suitcase, a burnt piece of toast. And they asked about each one a question that shouldn't have an answer. Is it male or female?
Nobody refused the question. 90% of those faces came back rated male, 9% female.
And the obvious objection doesn't survive it. It wasn't the objects. A handbag doesn't read as masculine. It wasn't the shapes, and it wasn't the colors. Wardle's team went looking for anything in the image that could explain the bias. There was nothing there. A slice of toast has no gender. Your brain assigns it one anyway, and it almost always assigns the same one.
This isn't your eyes making a small mistake with a pattern. Something in you is building a whole person out of a stain and giving that person a sex, an age, and a mood.
So how do you time a decision that fast? In 2009, a team led by Haji Khani published the answer in Neuroscience. They wired volunteers to sensors fast enough to clock the brain in milliseconds and flashed 3 kinds of image at them: real faces, ordinary objects, and objects that just happen to have 2 dots and a line in roughly the right places.
The circuit that handles faces sits in a fold of tissue behind your ear, the fusiform cortex. Watch it while the images go by. Real face. It fires at 165 milliseconds. Ordinary object. Nothing. Object that only looks like a face. 165 milliseconds. Same moment, same place.
Not almost the same. Your brain isn't inspecting the socket and deciding it resembles a face. In that first 1/6 of a second, it has already filed a wall socket as a person.
Now, some of you are already answering this. Of course I see faces everywhere. I've spent my entire life looking at faces. It's a habit. Fair question. It's the obvious explanation, and there's a clean way to test it. You find someone who has never seen a face.
In 2017, a team at Lancaster University did exactly that and published it in Current Biology. They worked with pregnant women at 34 weeks, and they used light, red light, at an intensity that passes through the wall of the abdomen, enough for a fetus to see something.
They projected 2 patterns. Both were 3 dots of light. One was arranged like a face, 2 dots up top, 1 below. The other, the same 3 dots flipped upside down. Then they watched to see which one the fetus turned toward. It wasn't close. The fetuses turned their heads toward the face-shaped one about 4 times as often.
Sit with that for a second. That is a person who has never seen a face, never seen their mother, never seen light that wasn't filtered through their own mother's body. In near total darkness, months before taking a breath, already turning toward the shape of a face. It isn't a habit. You didn't pick it up. You showed up with it already installed.
And it goes back further than that, because it isn't even ours. Show the same objects to a rhesus macaque, and it does what you do. It stares longer at the thing with the accidental face. Nobody taught it. It has never seen a wall socket in its life.
Which means this didn't start with us. It's older than our species, tens of millions of years older. Standard primate equipment we inherited, still running in the back of your head while you look at a coffee stain.
Now, push it to the edge. What happens if there's nothing there at all? Researchers ran that experiment. They showed volunteers pure visual noise, static, the gray fuzz of a dead channel, nothing hidden in the image because there was nothing in the image.
They just told people that half of the pictures contained a face and asked them to say when they saw one. People reported seeing faces 34% of the time. And this is the part that matters. When they said they saw a face in the static, the face region of the brain lit up. It wasn't politeness. The brain was doing the actual work of seeing a face in a picture that contained nothing but random dots.
Your face detector doesn't wait for evidence. Given an ambiguous mess, it will hand you a face, and it will feel exactly like seeing.
Now, if you know a system does that reliably in everyone, you can build for it. And there's an industry that has been quietly building for it the entire time you've been alive. Go look at the front of a car.
In one survey of drivers, 94% saw a face in the front end of ordinary production cars, headlights for eyes, grille for a mouth, and every single one of them reported some degree of the same expression. It was angry. That is not an accident. Car designers work on the front end the way a portrait artist works on a face. A big grille says dominance, soft curves say comfort, hard edges say speed. They are not decorating a bumper, they are choosing an expression, because they know your fusiform cortex will read one whether they choose it or not.
So the machine in your head is old enough to be primate, strong enough to work on static, and predictable enough to sell cars. Which brings the real question. Why would evolution build something this trigger-happy? A system this wrong this often sounds like a defect.
It isn't. It's a bet. And the math behind it is brutal. Now put yourself in the body of one of your ancestors, walking home at dusk. There's a shape in the tall grass ahead. It's ambiguous. It could be a rock, or it could be a face. And out here, faces come attached to teeth. You can call it a face when it's a rock. Cost, your heart rate spikes, you walk the long way around, you feel a little foolish, and you live. Or you can call it a rock when it's a face. Cost, everything. There is no second attempt, and you leave no children. Those two errors are not the same size. They were never the same size. So the system was never tuned to be accurate. It was tuned to be survivable. False alarms are cheap. Missed detections are permanent.
And you can still see which way the machine leans. Put one angry face in a crowd of calm ones, and people find it faster than they find a smiling face in the same crowd. Psychologists call it the face in the crowd effect. It works for snakes too. Threat jumps the queue. The car designers were not guessing. Your detector doesn't just invent faces, it gives priority to the ones that could hurt you.
Every ancestor you have was someone who made the cheap mistake. The ones tuned the other way didn't become anybody's ancestor. You are the end of an unbroken chain of people who flinched at nothing, thousands of times, and were alive at the end of the day to do it again. Which is how a hill fooled a species. On July 25, 1976, Viking 1 photographed a region of Mars called Cydonia and sent home an image of a face, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, staring straight up at the sky. The photograph was real. What it showed was a hill. Every pixel covered tens of meters of ground, so every detail was enormous and vague. The sun was low, so the shadows were long. And part of what everyone read as an eye and a nostril was missing data, bits that got corrupted on the way from Mars to Earth. In 2001, a better camera photographed the same spot. Higher resolution, better light. The face was gone. It had never been anything but a slope. But for 25 years, a piece of rock with 2 shadows in the right places was to millions of people evidence of a civilization. That's how strong the system is. It doesn't just work on toast. It works on a hill on another planet, photographed from orbit, through a broken transmission. And there's an older version of that story, and you have been looking at it your whole life. Go outside tonight and find the moon.
If you grew up in Europe or the Americas, someone told you there's a man up there, a face looking down. You have probably never questioned it. Go to China or Japan or Korea, and the same moon holds a rabbit. In China, it is pounding medicine. In Japan, it is pounding rice for mochi.
Some African and Native American traditions see a toad. Polynesia sees a woman with a child. Parts of India see a pair of hands. Nobody here is looking at a different moon. Same craters, same dark seas, same rock hanging over every one of them.
And here's the detail that gives the whole thing away. The man in the moon only assembles into a face if you're standing in the northern hemisphere. Cross the equator and the picture is upside down. So the hardware finds the pattern. Your culture decides what the pattern is, and the answer feels obvious to you either way.
Here's the last piece, and it's the one you'll recognize. The illusion is strongest out of the corner of your eye. In peripheral vision, where the detail is worst, your brain fills in the most. Which is why the face in the dark bedroom is always slightly to the side, and why it dissolves the moment you turn your head and look at it directly. So you don't need a ghost to explain the shape you saw at the end of the hallway last year, and you don't need to be losing your mind. It was a piece of primate equipment older than the human race, doing the job it was built for. And the job was never to show you the truth. The job was to make sure that if something was there, you saw it in time.
It would rather frighten you 1,000 times than let you miss the once that matters.
You can't turn it off. There's no setting. Tonight, the outlet will still be looking at you, and knowing all of this will change nothing about how it looks. But maybe it changes how it feels. Because that thing in the corner of your eye isn't your brain seeing something that isn't there. It's your brain refusing to miss something that is.
If you want another thing your brain decided without asking you, I made one about why you can't remember being a baby. Same machinery, earlier in the story.